watching NewsX with me, Devika Chopra. Now, today the world has witnessed a long-awaited event, the Pran Pratishtha ceremony for Ram Lalla in his birthplace of Ayodhya. Not only did the consecration ceremony end a civilizational struggle of almost 500 years, it has also acted as a unifying force across India and the globe. But what does the Pran Pratishtha really mean? Why was it important to establish the Ram Mandir in Ayodhya? We will take the next 50 odd minutes, viewers, to explain to you in great detail with some of our guests that we have with us, Pandit Satish K. Sharma. I also have Mr. Vedveer Arya with me and Rangarajan Narsimha with us. Hopefully, I will be able to take some help from the experts that we have to really understand what the term Pran Pratishtha signifies, what the ceremony signifies, what the Mandir complex today looks like, and of course, a little bit about the Ram Lalla idol as well. So let's begin by understanding, maybe just theoretically, what Pran Pratishtha means. The word Pran signifies life, prana, while Pratishtha means establishment. So essentially, Pran Pratishtha is understood as the establishment of life force or the transformative act of bringing a deity to life. Initially, as we've known that this ceremony has gone on over for 7 days, the idol remained immersed in a mixture of water and grain, symbolizing a period of sanctification. Upon its arrival at the temple, the idol was then subjected to a ceremonial milk bath, accompanied by the application of various fragrances which symbolized purification. After this, the idol was carefully positioned with a specific orientation towards the east, because the east is the direction of the rising sun, which symbolizes positive energy. And finally, the priests initiated a sacred sequence of hymns, mantras and rituals. It is believed that the effects of the Pran Pratishtha are enduring, as once the ritual in fact concludes, the divine presence within the idol persists for eternity. The idol is endowed with the ability to receive prayers and bestow blessings upon devotees. We have witnessed this entire process for the 51-inch tall Ram Lalla idol. He was first blindfolded, dipped into the holy Saryu river, bathed with honey and water from 114 urns. The idol was then taken on a palki or a tour of the temple premises and then finally brought to the Garbhagriha, the sanctum sanctorum, adorned with precious jewels, clothes and flowers. Havans and pujas have been performed for the past 6 days, including the Agni Sthapana, the Navagriha Sthapana, the Vastu Puja, a Shobha Yatra and the idol's worship, of course, today as we witnessed. Finally, we also saw Ram Lalla's blindfold being lifted, and eventually a mirror was placed in front of him so that he could absorb the energy of the mantras that were chanted throughout the previous 6 days. So I will now take this opportunity, like I said, to do a deep dive so that we as Indians can understand the significance of our own rituals. Let's first, however, begin by understanding a little bit about the mandir itself. Let's put out what we have on our touchpads on our screens if we can. And I'm going to quickly take our viewers through the temple complex as we know it. We know that the height, the maximum height is 161 feet. The temple complex, the entire complex is somewhere between 57 to 70 acres. The number is not clear. However, the actual temple complex, where what you can see on your screens and what you saw today where the ceremony was happening, is built on an area of 2.7 acres. The width of the initial stairs is 16 feet, and like I said, the height of the Shikhara, the maximum height of the temple, is 161 feet. Now we come, of course, to the second aspect, the 5 mandaps that are there in this particular temple. The first mandap that you see, viewers, is called the Ranga Mandap, then there is the Nritya Mandap, then there is the Kudu Mandap, and then there is the Garbhagriha, and then there is the Shikhar of the temple. Of course, a lot of thought has gone into the construction and the design and architecture of the temple, and I will come to the nitty-gritties of that in just a moment. But if I can take this moment to understand from Mr. Rangarajan Narasimha. Mr. Rangarajan, thank you so much firstly for taking our time to do this with us. If you could, sir, explain to our viewers what the 5 mandaps actually signify.
Jai Shri Ram. Congratulations to all Sanatana Dharmis on the deserving place for Sri Ram at Ayodhya to start with, and may this start a new era for Sanatana Dharma itself. Rather than explaining what the mandap is, I would try to say what are the shastras that is behind the shastras mean the science behind construction of a temple in general.
Okay.
As far as Ayodhya is concerned, I understand that it is based on a shastra called Pratishta Mauktika. I have not read this shastra. It is nearly about 500 pages. I have recently got it a couple of days back, and I am starting to. Most of these shastras which talk about building temples and the consecration, etc., are very similar in nature. They only differ based on the sampradaya that they represent, the gods that they are that are going to be installed in those temples, and the type of temples that are built. Otherwise, conceptually they are all the same. So I come from South India, where Agama Shastras are still existing and still in practice, where almost all the temples that are there in South India are running as per the Agama Shastras. The Shastras means they are all, like I said, it's a science, it's a set of rules governing right from the selection of the place where the temple is to be built, the kind of temple that is to be built, the kind of murti that is going to be residing in that temple, and the kind of pujas, the kind of rituals, the kind of utsavas that is supposed to be performed, and how the temple, etc., is to be maintained. And it's a whole gamut of various aspects of temple management, basically. And these shastras start from identifying a place where a temple must be built. Typically, a temple will be built in a place where gold can be found beneath the earth. That is supposed to be the Uttamottama, that is the best of the best places. Most of the Swayambhakta Kshetras are believed to be built like that. The olden temples are all believed to be built like that. Nowadays, most of the temples, when people build, they put gold underneath the foundation and then start building it, just to ensure that they satisfy one aspect of it. This is some nitty-gritty, basically.
Okay. All right. So I'll come back to you in just a moment. I'll come back to you in just a moment, because we'd like to just show a little bit more of the temple to our viewers as well. So as I was saying that there are 5 mandaps in this particular temple. From what we understand, it has been constructed in the Nagara style. So when you actually visit the temple, you will see that a lot of the influence is the Nagara style of construction, and that in fact is very popular across most of northern Indian states. So several temples do in fact have a similar style of construction as well. We've been told that the Ram Mandir is a 3-story building, and each floor is 20 feet tall inside the Ram Mandir. It is supported by 392 pillars, and all of them are beautifully carved. As you can see, we've tried to put together as many photographs as possible of the 392 pillars that support the Ram Mandir, and you can see in this second photograph from the left, the carvings, the beautiful carvings that are there inside the temple. And I will bring back my experts and maybe they can help us understand what some of the carvings also signify. What are the carvings supposed to be based on? Is it something specific? We'll come to that with Pandit Satish K. Sharma. Pandit Sharma, if you could perhaps help us understand, sir, when a temple is in fact constructed and one makes a decision on what sort of carvings will go in, what is that decision based on, sir?
Ji, Jai Shri Ram to yourself and also Acharya ji and Arya ji. It's a pleasure to talk on this subject, but I would defer to Narsimhan ji for his expertise and knowledge of Agama Shastras. What I will share with you is some of the understandings that I have gained over the years. Firstly, in response to your question, I have one small request. The appearance of this Ram Mandir is an opportunity for us as a civilization to engage in a process of incredible healing. You know, it's healing our mind, it's healing our hearts, and a part of that healing is our understanding of who we are. I have a little bit of an issue with one term, which I think is like every time I hear it, it's like a thorn pricking into my body, and that is when we use the word idol. One of the first things I had to do was to remove this word from my mind, and I would, with great humility, ask everybody never to use the word idol, because the word idol means false god. That's not what a murti is, it's not what a vigraha is. And so whenever we refer to it, we could use the word icon, which is a sacred image and a sacred statue in the Western European world, but idol itself is a problematic word. And so as part of my small contribution to the journey that we're all starting, I would humbly just share that idol we shouldn't use anymore. In terms of the... Thank you. I didn't mean that.
That's a fair point. That's a fair point. And I'll also thank you for pointing that out, you know, because like you said, we're so used to some terminologies and we've been saying the Ram Lalla idol, but I appreciate that. And hopefully, like I said, this is a learning experience for all of us today. And that's why we're having this conversation. So I'll keep that in mind as well. And I will now refer to it as the Ram Lalla Murti. Yes, Pandit Sharma, go ahead, please.
I feel as though my life has been worthwhile now. If that one little action can proliferate and everybody abandons the use of the word idol, we will leap forward. You asked about the imagery and the carvings and the statues. A mandir is many things. One of the dimensions which I'm aware of is that it's also the journey that we take when we start to do dhyan and sadhana and search inwards. Now, when we go inwards, we take ideas, we take words, and we take images. When we enter into a mandir, our journey is very similar to that for me. As we walk through, we are experiencing things that each of us is going to experience on the journey in dhyan. You know, we will hear shanks when you're sitting in meditation. You will hear mridangams, you will hear bells, and all of those are going to be experienced by the person who is walking through the Ram Mandir itself. Eventually, we hope that one day we will have darshan of divinity in a manner that we can recognize. And so the message that's carved on the walls inside and the walls outside is to give us the ideas and the thoughts and the bhavna and the sentiments that a sadhak needs to have when they approach their own inner divinity. So the Ram Mandir, I have not yet been blessed to have darshan. I hope one day very soon to have darshan. But I am sure that the Ram Mandir murtis will have been chosen. The deity, as well as all of the individual carvings, have been chosen to prepare a person's mind for the darshan. So hopefully they will be uplifting. They will tell the story that Sri Ramchandraji, Yuvraj Ramchandraji went through to become Sri Ram, and then the whole of the journey to create the Maryada Purushottam. All of these teachings, I'm hoping, will be enshrined in imagery on the walls of the mandir itself.
Okay, Mr. Vedveer Arya, bringing you into the conversations, as we were speaking about a bit of the architecture, the Ram Mandir also has 44 very intricately designed doors, some also gold plated, and a lot of the carvings here, what we see of course is the lotus and the elephant. If you could just maybe shed some light on the significance of the lotus as well as the elephant.
Yes. Today it was a memorable day for I think every Indian, because it's not only a religious ceremony, but it's a kind of a prana pratishtha of an ancient civilization, an Indian civilization. Last 1,000 years, some way, I think somebody wrote about it, it's a wounded civilization. So it's a great healing what took place today. As regards this lotus and the elephant, you know, Gajendra Moksha, whether you have heard about that story. So there is a very close connection between Vishnu and the elephant. So that's why there is a significance of keeping an elephant in every, even in South India, almost every temple you will have an elephant. It's a kind of in ancient time, it's a Raja Vahana. I can say a vehicle for especially a very special people.
Okay.
And as regard this lotus, it is called Kamal and Kamala. Kamala is a Lakshmi, the name of Lakshmi. Lakshmi is the consort of Vishnu, and Sri Rama is Vishnu's avatar. So every Vishnu temple or every Sri Rama temple, you will be worshipping with the lotus flower. So there is it's not just because generally the political manipulators, they think that you went with some BJP symbol. It's not. It is actually a Padma Pani, whether you have heard of this word. Even Avalokiteshvara in Mahayana Buddhism, he is a Padma Pani. Padma means lotus flower.
Right.
So there is a very significance of lotus flower while worshipping Vishnu, and his consort is also called Kamala, Padma. These are the names for the Lakshmi.
All right.
So this is the significance why Prime Minister walked with the lotus in his hands to worship Vishnu's avatar, Sri Ram.
Well,
so that is the significance.
I deeply appreciate that, and I'm going to come back to my guests in just a moment, but we'll do a quick, like I said, a walk through as we saw the Ram Mandir today. So coming back to some of the architectural aspects, we have 32 stairs to the entrance. Then this is a photograph of the Ranga Mandap, which was the first mandap, as I had explained earlier as well. Once again, you can see all the beautiful carvings there in the Ranga Mandap itself. It has, of course, a dome-like structure, and that is also very intricately carved. The next aspect is the Nritya Mandap. This is one photograph of the Nritya Mandap as we saw it today. Of course, there is beautiful decoration for the consecration ceremony, but even through that, you can see how intricate the carvings are on the pillars as well as the dome, as the roof of the mandir. And then, of course, another photograph from the top of the Nritya Mandap, where you can see some of the designs on the floors as well. And a lot of emphasis, Mr. Narasimha, is, of course, on the round shapes, on the circle. And I'm sure that holds great significance as well. So if you could perhaps shed some light on that aspect, sir.
Well, I was talking about the Agama Shastras. Agama Shastras give you the path by which the temple has to be built. Then comes the Shilpa Shastra, which will have to adhere to Agama Shastras and then go do the detailed design. In modern terms, we can talk about architecture and then engineer. So what has happened is, once the Agama Shastras have said this is how the temple must be built, 3 floors, and so such and such sannidhis must be there, such and such vigrahas must be installed and consecrated. The Shilpi, that is the sculptor, is given a free hand to depict the Sampradaya and all the related things related to the Sampradaya. So I think the architect, the modern day architect has used his imagination to build a dome-like structure. If you look into temples in South India, every temple will be different. Something will be square, something will be half semicircle, something will be a circle, etc., etc. And different types of things are there. All these things, the child was sculpted the temple. South India has got tons of temples, and each temple is different from the other. None of them are repetition of the other, of the one you can see. So, in my opinion, whatever you see, the sculptures, the beautiful sculptures, etc., etc., is the child of the sculptor. If you come to Srirangam from where I am, the whole temple, even UNESCO has in 1969 has got a report which says very clearly that in Srirangam you cannot see beautiful sculptures at all. You know why? Because the purpose of a devotee to come inside a temple is to have darshan of Lord Ranganatha, who is actually the Kuldeva of Sri Ram right now actually. So the architect who designed Srirangam wanted every focus to be on the main Lord, Sri Ranganatha, and not wander here and there. and so he designed it that way. But if you go to Madurai Meenakshi Amman temple or another temple in Tamil Nadu like Kanchipuram Varadaraja Perumal temple, you can see beautiful sculptures sculpted everywhere, having different stories in the itihasas and Puranas depicted in the entire place, so that you understand the purpose of yourself. Where are you? Who are you? What is your relationship with the God? And what are you supposed to do in your life? How are you going to elevate yourself from point A to point B? This is and then attain moksha. The concept of birth death cycle will be depicted in different ways as per the imagination and the creativity of the sculptor, and
Right.
that is what you see in probably in this temple also, where the sculptor was given a free hand to display his mastery over this to the art basically.
Absolutely. I'll come to you in just a moment once
And
again, sir. Yes.
Yeah, and it is right for the sculptor to come and tell us why he has put in certain things in certain place. For example, if I have to quote Srirangam, there is one Sannadhi called Venugopala Swami Sannadhi, in which there is beautiful sculptures. Only one Sannadhi of 156 acres, about 200 square feet of area is what have wonderful sculptures. The entire sculptures around it depicts Tirupavai, one of the songs sung by Andal Nalvar, and it completely depicts all the 30 songs that is there in that. So it depends on what has happened, how the sculptors are sculpted. In Angkor Wat, if you go, one full hall will have Ramayana, another one full hall will have Mahabharata, another
Right.
full hall will have Vishnu Purana, and the fourth one will have the history of the kings that ruled Angkor Wat. So, I mean, it depends on, I have not seen the place, so I cannot say anything, but so I have to see how to do things basically. So, it depends on the sculptor basically.
All right, I'll come to you in just a moment, Mr. Narasimha. But Mr. Vedveer Arya, we've now come, of course, to some photographs of the Garbhagriha, sir, which is also, of course, the Sanctum Sanctorum. If you can perhaps shed some light on what is kept in mind when the Sanctum Sanctorum has to be designed. What I'm showing to our viewers on the screens is a photograph that came in today. It's a front view photo of the Sanctum Sanctorum, where of course you can see the idol in the center, and once again the beautiful carvings on all the walls, and there's a beautiful pedestal as well, gold plated, on which the idol has been kept, and of course at the top, quite interestingly, of the Sanctum Sanctorum or the Garbhagriha is a carving of Lord Vishnu in the Anant Shayan, which is the sleeping posture, on top of the idol. So if you could maybe just shed some light on the significance of this all.
Yes, in every temple, this is the most important place, because where you will be doing the prana pratishtha of Vigraha. That's why Ramo Vigrahavan Dharmaha. This is the statement in Valmiki Ramayana. So that while for that purpose, you will be selecting very special place, and as per the Mandir architecture, there is a Shastra where how to build a temple, and it has to be below that Gopura or even Nagara style, because the temple in Ayodhya built in a Nagara style. In South India, it have a Dravida style where we will be doing that Gopura, and if you go to the Orissa side, you have that Amalaka style of a. So there are different ways of building this one. But Garbhagriha, because where you are going to worship the after Prana Pratishtha of the Vigraha, that's why the way it will be carved, like it's a very divine place. So all you have to keep those things, and that Vishnu's, that Ananta Shayan, this is actually as per our traditional Puranic references, where Vishnu was on the Shesha Shayya in Kshira Sagara. So depicting that significance, even you go to the Padmanabha temple, the deity is in a Ananta Shayana portion. So these are the historical and Puranic, especially because in Bhakti, you are actually seeing the person in the Vigraha. That's why you do this Prana Pratishtha, because you want to feel him actually, he is standing before you.
Right.
So in that, especially bhakti, and you have to have a kind of a imaginary world in you. That is called, it's not an imaginary, where you will be feeling very ancient person in the present times. So for that, you have to do a lot of sadhana to get that kind of a bhakti status.
Right, absolutely. I'll come to my experts in just a moment, because we've now, of course, shifted to the idol of Murti. Pardon me. See, I'm just trying to, Pandit Sharma, I'm trying to keep in mind what you've said, but it'll take me more than just a day to perhaps get rid of this habit. But I've come now to the Ramlala Murti to discuss a little bit about that as well. We know that it was made by a sculptor from Mysuru. This is, of course, a visual of the Murti without all the jewels and the clothing that Ramlala adorned today during the Pran Pratishtha ceremony. What we see is that the Murti, that Ramlala is standing on a base of the lotus, and we've of course already discussed in detail what the lotus really signifies. It's been carved out of high density stone, which is known as the Shaligram. And it was brought, remember, recently, especially from Nepal, and it's estimated to be millions of years old and is very significant to Hinduism. And I'll come to my guests to understand that as well. The Ramlala idol then, of course, holds a bow and arrow. It weighs approximately 200 kgs and it has a height of about 4.24 feet. We now see, of course, in the idol itself, 10 incarnations of Lord Vishnu. We have at the base Lord Hanuman, and we also have at the base Garuda that have been carved. Let me now come back to Pandit Satish K. Sharma. Pandit Sharma, as Mr. Narasimha was also pointing out, that ultimately, of course, a lot is left to the imagination and decisions that the artist and the sculptor takes. But if you could help perhaps our viewers understand, sir, the fact that, all the incarnations of Lord Vishnu here carved into the Murti itself, then you have Lord Hanuman on the base, you have Garuda on the base. What more can you tell our viewers about the significance of this all?
Gee, thank you, and I applaud your attempts to try and decolonize yourself of this terrible word idol. It's a journey for all of us. A Murti is an extraordinary creation of our civilization. When you realize that everybody is at a different place on their journey, we have people who are hyper-intellectuals, we have people who are very much bhakti-oriented, and a Murti encapsulates a message and an opportunity, a channel to connect with divinity for each and every person. So when one person who is a Bhakt sees a Murti, their emotions start to flow and they start to think about the story, they start to think about the loving experiences in the Ramayana Katha, and that satisfies a person who is of a Bhakti orientation. And yet, when we have people who have powerful minds, we need to be able to connect to the Murti in a different way. We need to be able to nurture that mind. We need to be able to entrance and ensnare that mind, and eventually take the jiva, the Atman, the person, even beyond mind and thinking itself. So Murti is a vital entity. One thing that I'd like to just also emphasize is that we have a slightly different understanding of what divinity is. We know that divinity resides within us. And so what we want the Murti to do is to give us a moment of darshan, as we call it. In Abrahamic traditions, they go to worship. We actually go seeking a darshan. And a darshan can be described in a number of ways in the English language. A darshan is a vision, it's a realization, it's a moment of intuition. It's an aha moment when suddenly something brings a few pieces of your understanding together and you have a revelation. Something else comes into play. So the whole of the mandir itself as a building is designed to try and make you susceptible to an aha moment. It grabs hold of your thinking apparatus and drags it from pillar to post, educating it, creating it for a particular frame of mind, and then suddenly there you have the murti. And if you gaze into the eyes of a murti with a quiet mind, we believe, we experience, we understand that Pran Shakti and the entity which is enshrined within that deity, that murti, can actually give you the benefits of all of the Pran Shakti that it's accumulated. One of the steps that the murti takes before it's enthroned and installed is Shobha Yatra. And I think that's the first exposure to Pran Shakti, where the people watching the Shobha Yatra are pouring their good hearts, their good sentiments, their hopes. Lots of beneficial Pran Shakti is being poured into the murti itself. And then the process of completing the murti, healing it of any minor blemishes that may have occurred in the process of the creation of the murti, right the way through to Pran Pratishtha, is an exercise in gathering that Pran Shakti. And when you as an aspirant, as a humble aspirant, open to receiving Pran Shakti from the deity, go there and quieten the mind and gaze into its eyes, when your mind has been settled by the story of all of the avatars that have got representation on the Vigraha, when your mind has been quietened to such a degree, when the atmosphere of the mantras which is being chanted, those mantras and those vibrations in a building with no metal, suddenly they become the repository of all of those vibrations. And a condition is created when suddenly you experience a darshan. And that darshana is what we are all hoping to receive from this deity.
How fascinating and how interesting. You know, there's just so much that even I'm sitting here and learning today, because of course, like I said, a lot of people were waiting for that first glimpse of Ram Lalla, but ultimately it gives us a great opportunity to really learn and understand what actually happened today and why it happened in the sequence of events that it did. I'm going to request our guests to stay on with us and be a little patient with me, as well as I'm also learning today. And we'll now move across towards understanding the actual Pran Pratishtha ceremony that took place. I'm going to quickly see if we can just put out some of those first moments on our screens. So Prime Minister Modi there arrived inside, of course, the Ram Mandir, and in his hands he was carrying what I've been told is a silver chhatri as well as a chola. I'm going to come to Mr. Rangarajan. Sir, if you could explain to our viewers why exactly was a silver chhatra carried by the Prime Minister?
Concepts that are there, which is there as part of it. Before I come to Chatri, I would like to throw some light on the reclining posture of Sriman Narayana on top of the Garbhagriha, if I may.
Yes, absolutely. I'll even, in fact, as we're speaking, I'll put out that photograph as well.
Yeah, if
for
you
a
put up the photograph, you can understand what
yes.
it is basically. In Valmiki Ramayana, Valmiki very clearly says that Sri Ram had his Kuladeva, Ranganatha has his Kuladeva. Ranganatha is none other than Sriman Narayana in the abode of Brahma in Satyaloka. First, Brahma was given an idol, Vigraha. Before I come to this, we are all Indians, we don't know English. So we use the language, whatever we are taught to. I will try to change myself, because when I speak in my mother tongue, I use only Vigraha or Murti, but when it is English, it automatically comes in. So thanks for correcting that, and I will keep it in mind. Sriman Narayana has given a Vigraha to Brahma for worship, and that is Sri Ranganatha Swami. And Ikshvaku, the king, who had the ability to visit Satyaloka, had once gone there, and then he fell in love with the Vigraha there, and then he prayed to Narada, to Brahma, and Brahma said, you do penance, and then prove that you are worth it, and I will give it to you. So, and then Ikshvaku did the penance, and Brahma gave it to him, and Ikshvaku brought it from Satyaloka to this Bhuloka, this earth. And the subsequent lineage of Ikshvaku were been doing pujas for Ranganatha at Ayodhya, and after the Pattabhisheka, Ranganatha, Lord Rama presented this Sri Ranganatha to Vibhishana, who actually did the installation of that in Sri Ranga. This is what it is. So, to signify this, the architect who has done, the sculptor who has done, who has understood the nuances in Valmiki Ramayana, had rightly placed the reclining posture of Sriman Narayana. It is not Vishnu. Vishnu is an avatar of Sriman Narayana. Sriman Narayana is on the reclining posture, and there is a beautiful poem in Tamil in Tamil, which is basically Nalayara Divya Prabandham, which says, written by Tirumalizai Alvar, one of the Alvars. It says, நான் முகனை நாராயணன் படைத்தான், நான் முகனும் தான் முகமாய் சங்கரனைத்தான் படைத்தான், யான் முகமாய் அந்தாதி மேலிட்டு அறிவித்தேன் ஆழ்வளை சிந்தாமல் கொள்மி நீர் நெஞ்சேர்ந்து. The meaning of this is, the first two lines are important. He says, நான் முகனை நாராயணன் படைத்தான். That means Nanmugan is basically the four-headed person. Who is it? Brahma. The Brahma was created by Narayana. This is what Nanmuganai Narayanan Padattan means. Brahma was created by Narayana. Nanmuganum Tanmugamai Sankaranaitan Padattan. Here Shankara means everybody knows it's Shiva. So Brahma created Shankara. Narayana created Brahma. Brahma created Shankara. And that is how the world was created after that. Exactly this is what is depicted in the Garbhagraha, right on top of Sri Ram Lalla there. You see Mahavishnu, Sriman Narayana lying on a posture, and then you can see Brahma on top from the navel, which on top of a Padma basically, that is lotus there. On top of it you have Brahma who has 4 heads, and next to him a little lower is Shiva.
Right,
and
yes.
Because Brahma created Shiva, and on the right hand side you see Garuda, and then the Mahalakshmi is there as well. So the entire Garbhagraha that was there in Ayodhya was depicted by the sculptor, and it is placed on top of Sri Rama, who took a form, avatar of a human being, to teach people how a human being must be living in this world with all the righteous qualities that one has to possess. And in order to attain moksha, that means to go to the abode of Sriman Narayana in Sri Vaikunta. This is number one. Second is that you talked about the Murti of Ram Lalla himself. Around the Murti you have the Dasavatara, and on one side you have Hanuman, and the other side you have Garuda, etc., etc. Garuda is a representation of Vedas. Vedas are Garuda, and Garuda is Veda.
Right.
So it has a place in it, and so it had a place. Hanuman had Rama and Sita in his heart. He opened the heart and showed it. Everybody would have seen that picture that Hanuman opens his heart and you will see Sita, and he is the devote. It's a very sincere devotee of Sri Rama, who still lives in Bhuloka as per Sri Sanatana Dharma. When Rama left Bhuloka, Hanuman said, I will stay here and then I will sing your praise. So Hanuman is rightly given a place in the Garbhagraha and in the Murti itself. So these are all the beautiful stories that are carved by the sculptor, and along with all other sculptures. So the whole temple is a storytelling place of what? The storytelling place of our Itihasas and Puranas. And what do Itihasas and Puranas say? Itihasas and Puranas are the explanation of what is there in Vedas. Without Itihasas and Puranas, you will not be able to understand Vedas, because if you read only Vedas, it will have contradictory statements. One will say God is existing, another will say God is not existing. So you have to ensure that you understand it properly. And if you want to understand this properly, you need Itihasas and Puranas' help. And that is what is I can, from this Garbhagraha structure itself, which we have seen right now on the visuals that we see, we can see that the entire temple would have revolved around the Sri Vaishnava Sampradaya, and which is Sri Ramanandi Sampradaya, which is an offshoot of Sri Vaishnava Sampradaya, which is propounded by Ramanujacharya. Ramananda Acharya actually is a disciple of Ramanujacharya, who believed in the Sri Sampradaya. In Ramanuja Sampradaya, it is Narayana and Lakshmi, but in Sri Sampradaya, it is Rama and Sita as the Brahma. So this is exactly what is depicted. Everything else will fall in place once this main concept is there. And I think the sculpture has used this. I mean, he has consulted proper pandits to understand Valmiki Ramayana and has done this job basically.
That was such a lovely and what a exhaustive understanding, sir, that you've given to our viewers of what has happened today. And like I said, I'm going to just take a moment to hopefully now go over the actual ceremony and how it all began. Let's put it out on our screens as we had earlier as well. So we'll just walk our viewers through step by step. So first, of course, Prime Minister Modi arrived at the steps, the 32 stairs he crossed of the Ram Mandir. Then, of course, Prime Minister Modi, like I said, carried the silver chhatra, as I was told by some of my colleagues. That's what it is. I'll come to it in just a moment. Then, of course, he sat down in one of the mandaps. The priest, there you can see on your screens, begins by putting tilak on Prime Minister Modi. Then we were told that the Prime Minister was given Charnamrit, which he took in his hand from the priest. That was the next step. Then we were told that the Prime Minister performed the Duso Disha Puja. I'll just pause it here on this particular step. Mr. Vedveer Arya, let me bring you into the conversation, sir. If you can help explain to our viewers, before going inside the Garbhagriha, several pujas were performed, but what exactly, sir, is the Duso Disha Puja that is performed?
This is actually doing the puja in all 10 directions. 10 directions, 4 and the other diagonal, and as well as the top and the bottom. These are called 10 directions. So that Dasha Disha Puja, what you are referring to that one. So because the temple is like generally it is viewed as a model of a cosmos also, especially philosophically. In that context, these pujas have came into. Because I am a historian, I generally take them how the rituals have been evolved behind that one. Okay. So this place where SriRama was born as an avatar of Vishnu. So therefore, this place is a kind of it's a symbol of a Brahmanda. So it is having all those 10 directions. So this is the reason why this Dasha Disha Puja was performed today.
Okay.
And naturally, these are all rituals are attached to, especially when we are doing the Prana Pratishtha in any temple's Garbhagriha. But today it's a very special day because the way it was done, it is, I think, various Agama Shastras have been consulted, and thereafter, I think the Rama Janma Bhoomi, the Tirtha Kshetra Trust, they came with the very exhaustive scheme of these rituals.
Right, absolutely. So now we'll continue that sequence of events. Mr. Vedveer Arya, thank you. I'll come to you in just a moment once again. So after the Dusho Disha Puja, we saw, of course, the RSS chief Mohan Bhagwat there joining the Prime Minister as well in this particular puja. We were then, of course, told that the Prime Minister, let's pause it here, of course, performed the Ganesh Puja outside the Garbhagriha. Let me bring Pandit Satish K. Sharma back. Pandit Sharma, of course, we do to a large extent, sir, understand the significance of a Ganesh Puja. We know that anytime you're going to do something positive, you're hoping for positive energy to come towards you, you're starting a new project that you want essentially success in and luck for, you do, of course, perform a Ganesh Puja. Before beginning anything in life, we're told to perform the Ganesh Puja. He's called the Vigna Vidhaya. But if you could just perhaps, shed some more light on why the Ganesh Puja is significant to a Pran Pratishtha ceremony.
Yes, where do we start? Ganeshji is one of our favorite visions and darshanas of divinity. So let me start with this. Firstly, we always invoke wisdom. Ganeshji has become a symbol of wisdom, and we invoke wisdom before we do any puja. We ask that wisdom guide us so that we can overcome obstacles. And I'm sure the viewers will know that before we do Lakshmi Puja, we always do Ganesh Puja, because if we do receive abundance and wealth, we don't want it to be without wisdom. So may we have wisdom first. But there is, for me, there is another dimension to the Ganesh Puja, which is one of humility. If I can bring your memory back to the story of the birth of Ganeshji, how he is created by Parvati Devi and challenges Shivji himself, he challenges Bholenath. And it isn't until that arrogant, all-knowing ego is beheaded and replaced by a head, i.e. a mind of wisdom, that we can then proceed. So it's also a gesture of humility. So if you're going to go with and perform something as important as a Pran Pratishtha, this also gives us the opportunity to bow our heads and internally be as humble as we possibly can and ask that all obstacles be removed, and may the purpose of this puja actually be fulfilled, and we ask that with humility.
Well, thank you so much for that explanation. We'll continue now the sequence of events before I come back to our experts to understand further. After of course, the Ganesh Puja, we saw the Prime Minister entering the Garbhagriha, which, of course, once he entered, you can see how they enter through the side, and of course, the curtains were kept closed for the general public. Then inside, let's pause here for a moment. The Prime Minister we saw was given the kush grass and of course a lotus on top, which we're told symbolizes wealth and cleanliness. But I'll bring in Mr. Narasimha back into the conversation. Mr. Narasimha, if you could perhaps shed some light for our viewers on the significance of the kush grass in prayers and pujas in India.
It is one of the holiest grasses that one can. It is considered the holiest in of all the grasses basically. The Sanatana Dharma, the Vedas require that kush grass is used for every spiritual purpose, every spiritual function that is to be there. Without the kush grass, it cannot happen. It purifies everything, is what we believe in. So these kush grasses are all very standard in all Vaidika Sampradaya rituals. It is there. You cannot see any rituals without this thing basically.
Absolutely. And
so
like,
this is part and parcel of the rituals, where you are supposed to be sitting on top of a kush grass or a deer skin or a tiger skin to get the to feel to be clean basically, both internally as well as externally. This is what it is. I forgot to answer your question on chatra that was used when you asked me about when Prime Minister was bringing in.
Yes.
Chatra and chamara, these two are symbols of righteous leaders. We all now know, because of the new parliament building, that there was one thing called Sengol, which has been installed in the parliament.
Yes.
The Sengol also a symbol of righteous leadership. How the king will do. Again, in Valmiki Ramayana and Kamba Ramayana and almost all Ramayanas and Sri Vaishnava Sampradaya, Acharyas completely say that during Pattabhisheka, Lakshmana, who did the service for 14 years without sleeping continuously for Sri Rama, took chatra on one hand and chamara on the other hand. Chatra is the white umbrella, which symbolizes the leadership quality of this thing. This is a mark of a respect, basically. And chamara is the one with which you fan basically. This is also a mark of a respect basically. This is given to kings basically. Usually kings have this. And this chatra and chamara are supposed to be like I said, symbol of leadership, which has been done by his slaves basically. The Lord's slaves. Lakshmana was the Lord's slave, and today if you come to South India, you will see in every festival, every Utsava, there will be tons of white umbrellas which will go all over. Everywhere it will be there. On top of the Lord also there will be one, which will be probably either in gold or in silver, but otherwise it will be all on cloth based also. So this is all a mark of greatness basically in the Sanatana Sampradaya.
Well, so thank you for that explanation. And like I said, even the kush grass, I've always seen, of course, my father in several pujas over the years being handed this grass. But like I said, today it's been a learning experience for me as well to truly understand what it means. We'll move forward with the sequence of events. We just have another few moments left before we need to wrap this up. We were then told, of course, that the Prime Minister performed a Rashi Dan for prosperity, where he presented money, for the lack of a better word, to the deity. The prayers offered, of course, to the previous Ram Lalla idol as well, to the first Ram Lalla idol. You can see on your screens there, that's what was happening in this particular event. Then, of course, this is where the prayers, in fact, to the new Ram Lalla idol began. Let's keep that moving, if we can, in terms of the sequence of events. And, of course, this was the big moment where we got that first glimpse of the new Ram Lalla Murti in the Garbhagriha. So this was, of course, a moment that will go down in history. Then the Prime Minister offered chadhawa from various different states to the Ram Lalla Murti. We could see there was, I also saw, of course, a sari there at the bottom, and then there was some other gifts that were brought from various different states. The chhatra and the chola, as Mr. Narasimha just explained to us, that was also then kept at the feet of the Murti. So this is what we've just understood, the significance of that, and we now see why it's being kept at the feet of the Murti. After that, of course, the curtains of the Garbhagriha were opened up for public darshan. Like I said, this was a big moment which will now go down in history. The Prime Minister then presented phal, fruits, to the idol, which is, of course, a part of the entire ceremony. And then, in the end, of course, we also saw the jyoti, the jyot, which was lit up, and the aarti then being performed. After that, we also saw everybody who was in the sanctum sanctorum actually taking around the parikrama. So I'll just quickly understand then from our guests. If Ms. Vedidarya, if you could come into the conversation here, sir. I can't get into the chants that were performed. That would be another very lengthy conversation, sir. But if we could keep it simpler for our viewers to understand, you know, just a little bit of the sequence of events where you go in, you make several offerings are made to the Murti. If you could explain why exactly is it that there is some money that is presented, there is fruits that are presented. If you could shed some light on that, sir.
A very interesting question. I'll give you the general historical how these rituals have been evolved, because temple used to be a center of activities in every village or every small town or any big town in ancient times. For the temple was the center of education. Temple was even certain places were used as a hospitals as well as a hotels, because the people, the tourists or anybody, travelers also, they used to stay in temples, and free food used to be given to anybody who is coming to the temple. And the outside of the temple used to be the business centers. Even sometimes temple acted as a hundi, it means kind of a banker's activities also. That's why temple was a multi-activity center from the traditionally onwards. So the people used to donate the money to the temple for all these activities. Apart from that, the Brahmanas who used to do the pujas as well as the run the education centers, it was very important to give that. Why? Because the Brahmanas, or means the learned people there in the temple, it was the social order that they should not do any other profession other than this teaching and studying, because this is called Brahmanena Nishkarano Dharma. This is the reason why Vedas are being preserved till date, because so many learned people have sacrificed their life generation to generation. Nobody has exploited anyone. It is the kind of the way the modern narrative has been that some upper caste have been or lower, some this kind of any exploitation never existed. Some that is a different social arguments. But this was the very important reason why everybody used to go temple and they do the donation. That later it became ritual, like you have to give some offerings, because some people may not have any shraddha. Still, shraddhaya deyam, ashraddhaya deyam. आपके पास श्रद्धा है तब भी दीजिए, अश्रद्धा है तब भी दीजिए. So this is the very, very, otherwise how the temple will survive? A person who is sacrificing entire life for studying and preserving the ancient text and handing on to the next generation. So these are the very, very important, which actually everyone has to do even today also. These are the significances behind the offerings in temples.
I'm being told to wrap up this debate, but Pandit Satish K. Sharma, one last word to you. I just have a minute, sir. Thank you so much, Mr. Mandir Ayodhya, firstly, for explaining that. And just the last bits, if you could also shed some light, Pandit Sharma, on the fact of the symbolization and the significance of the parikrama. And then, of course, we saw in the end the Prime Minister lying down on the floor as he bowed to the Ramlala Murti. Now, of course, we usually go to the temple and we just fold our hands before the Murti, but I know that there is great significance in actually lying down on the floor when you do it. If you could just, sir, 1 minute, if you could just explain the two.
Jay, it's been wonderful listening to the other two gentlemen. In conclusion, you have to go to a mandir. The bhavana, the sentiments, the akash tattva in a mandir is unique, and it invites you to submit, to give up your ego, and to give up your separation. It's not something that you can fully realize without going there, so everybody must go for darshan. But there is one small thought that I had, and that is that Prime Minister Modi ji has given us an example of humility. When a sadhak goes to lie, Ishwar Pranidhan is a state in Yoga Bhyas, and that means I give up and submit to your will. By putting a chhatra in place, a leader is saying, I commit to protect you. By giving money and dhan, he is saying, this is yours anyway, and I'm not going to let ownership and possessions bind me into ego. So I give this back to you as well. Each and every step is a step of humility, and it's a surrendering of individuality and a surrendering of ego. And at this time, I think it's an incredible example for all of us to do exactly the same. Let's follow in his footsteps, let's offer protection, and let's offer support. As Arya ji has just said, a mandir was the pulsating heart of our communities.
Yes.
It's where we stored our wealth, but it's also where we stored our hopes. And the last thing I would say is there is a mystical aspect to all of this. Pran Pratishta infuses Pran Shakti into what was an inanimate object. And that Pran Shakti can only be experienced by darshan of it. So that dimension, please, I would implore everyone to go and give of your Pran Shakti and receive Pran Shakti back, multiplied 1,000,000 times.
Well, thank you so much to all of our guests. I wish we had more time because I was enjoying this conversation so much after a very long time. It's a conversation that I've enjoyed, that I've learned from, and that's when it truly becomes, an important educative exercise and an interesting conversation. Once again, my thanks to all of our experts for joining us. For the past 1 hour, we've tried to learn with you viewers, and hopefully we've succeeded somewhere in teaching you something as we've taught ourselves today. On that note, a very short break.